When you look at the Pelicans rotation for next season, it tells you everything. The team does not need a one-dimensional three-point specialist. What they might actually need is more of a heroic Jordan Poole. It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Thursday, and we've got quite a show. This one went in a different direction when I was planning it out than I originally thought, but I think it's a really interesting discussion. We're going to look at the rotation for the Pelicans, sketching it out with pencil here. I'm going to tell you how certain trades people want to keep throwing out just don't really make a lot of sense for the team. And then when you get into some numbers behind Jordan Poole, what makes sense for the team is more Jordan Poole. We're going to break it down in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well, and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. I see y'all every single day in there. And don't forget, you can watch Locked On Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. And we also have the Locked On Pelicans fan survey. Did yesterday's show about the questions we put in there. We have like hundreds of responses for it. That's awesome. Get your voice heard. We're going to turn that into a number of shows here on the Locked On Pelicans podcast. The link is in the description down below. So the reason I'm leading off with this was I wanted to grade some more fake hypothetical trades here on the show. And one came across that I think led to a more interesting discussion. You'll remember when I did this last week, I think it was Chompy Doc from Fanspo who commented, sorry for giving you an F on your trade, man, where, it was Jordan Hawkins and a protected future first for Buddy Hield. And I'm saying by doing that, you're putting the Pelicans into the luxury tax, and then they're going to need to use another asset to make a trade to get out of the luxury tax. And you're trading for just a one-dimensional player that's then making them use multiple assets to kind of make this work. And that just doesn't seem to really work. And this trade today comes from Garrison Giddens at GGIDDS2 on Twitter here, and it's Sam Hauser for Jordan Hawkins and a second-round pick via Chicago. Sam Hauser makes $10 million. Jordan Hawkins makes 4.7. Hauser is an elite three-point shooter. Don't get me wrong. This is someone who shot in his 4 seasons in the NBA like 43% on good volume. But you're adding $5.3 million to the team's cap, and that puts them into the luxury tax. So Giddens says we trade hypothetical shooting for real shooting, and you are correct. Hauser is a better shooter, better size for Jordan Hawkins. I would love that deal if didn't put the Pelicans into the luxury tax. And for an upgrade of just pure three-point shooting like that, I don't think it's even worth making that move at all. A lot of people are trying to trade away Jordan Hawkins, and I get it. But here's the thing. A one-dimensional shooter, like moving for that, I don't know if it makes a ton of sense. Let's get into the minutes here. There's 48 minutes per position in an NBA game. And breaking down how Willie Green has traditionally done rotations, your point guard starter, this is kind of going off last year, which is a little bit wonky, but whatever, plays about 33 minutes. Your backup plays about 15. Your your shooting guard starter plays about 36 minutes, backup about 12. Small forward, about 36, 37 minutes for the small forward, backup about 11. Your power forward, Zion, is 30 minutes, backup is 18. And the centers we can kind of leave out of this, right? I project this one being like 30 minutes for Messi, 18 minutes for Kevon Looney. So if we break this down for what I think the starting lineup is going to be, this is a 10-man rotation. Poole's going to get about 33 minutes. Jose is going to get about 15. At the 2 guard, I think it's going to be Herb Jones, who's going to play about 36. Hawkins then is getting about 12 minutes. Trey is getting 35, 36 minutes. Your backup there, is going to be about 13, 14. Zion is playing 32 minutes. The backup is 16. Misi's playing 30. Looney's 18. That leaves about 12 minutes somewhere in there for Jeremiah Fears, by the way. And also imagine that Zion's backup would be Derek Queen when he's healthy here. That's kind of what you're looking at. And this is a little bit fluid because Herb and Trey can play the three. Herb can play the three, Trey can play the four. So you get into all of that, but that's a 10-person rotation. And you also need to maybe factor in someone like Micah Peavy. So when you look at that, whose minutes are you going to cut, if you trade for Sam Hauser? If Jordan Hawkins is only going to be in line for somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes, and maybe that's all it's going to be for him right now, do you really need to move him, put the team into the luxury tax, and then have to move somebody else to upgrade a closer to end of bench guy than top of the rotation kind of guy? And I think the answer to that is you don't really want to do that necessarily. This is also without factoring in that DeJounte Murray is going to return at some point in time. And, where does he fit into that? So upgrading from Hawkins, I get why people are doing it. To me, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Look, I would like to add more shooting to this team, and we'll talk about that in the next segment here. But overall, I struggle to see where that would be the difference making kind of move, especially if you're going to use some sort of draft asset to get that upgraded shooter. And then because it puts you into the luxury tax, and this trade here does, Fanspo doesn't have the correct numbers is what I've learned from seeing these things. If it puts you into the luxury tax, then you've got to use another draft asset most likely to basically dump a guy, or you're going to just kind of come out on the wrong side of a trade in terms of players and talent because you are trying to get under the luxury tax. So maybe you don't use a pick, but maybe you downgrade talent in a deal like that because you are trying to duck the luxury tax. And look, while I'd like them to pay the luxury tax for the correct team, I don't know if this is a team that can really justify it. And if you were to add Sam Hauser to the team, I don't know if that's the move that's oh yeah, they're going to be really good now, let's definitely pay the luxury tax. You've got to time it right if it's an unfortunate reality that they're just not going to do that, tremendously, right? So that I do think is a really important thing to look at when it comes to this. When you look at these trades, factor in that the Pelicans have about $4.2 million to the luxury tax. So, if you trade Hawkins, you can bring back about $4.2 million more, not 5.3, which this Sam Hauser deal does. Basically, same thing with the Buddy Hield trade. It was slightly less. So I'm not going to grade this one because it kind of falls in the same bucket. I mean, it'd be an F, but you've also got to factor in when you look at the rotation, is it worth paying a lot to upgrade a 12 to 15 minute per game player? And to me, that's a no. If you were to upgrade a 30-minute player position, that's a different story, but that's not what we're doing by just adding a little bit more shooting here. And also, our team's either going to cover Hauser or are they still just going to double team Zion, who you would conceivably be playing him with. That's what kind of goes into thinking about some of these trades. It's great just to say they should get this guy, he's good, but if you got to look at the minutes they're going to play, the role they're going to play, kind of is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing when it comes to it. And I think for those type of players, those end of bench role playing guys, the answer, as I'm dropping things, is no when it comes down to it. What do you think the rotation is going to look like? Is your starting lineup Poole, Herb, Trey, Zion, Misi, or Looney? Who's the backup point guard? Is it Jose? Is it Jeremiah Fears? How many minutes do you think Jeremiah Fears is going to get? What about Derek Queen? We'll talk a little bit more about this in the third segment of today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, because I do think things are still a very bit fluid here. But look, just because I wouldn't do this trade or upgrade for a one-dimensional shooter does not mean that this team does not need more shooting. They do. And Jordan Poole, I think, is key to that, but not in a way that you might think. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what those accounts are worth. So whether it's 401ks, property, investments, if you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. I linked all of my accounts in Monarch Money in just minutes, and immediately it was showing me subscriptions that I wasn't even using. Canceled those right away, saving money every single month. And if you're working on your budget, your finances with a partner, Monarch makes it simple to review your finances so you can both see budgets, goals, and spending activity in one place. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000, almost 12,000 fans on YouTube as well. Become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. For your second listen, it's the Locked On NBA podcast. What's going on with the restricted free agents? What are the biggest rumors around the association? Locked On NBA is covering it every single day, Monday through Sunday. It's 7 days a week. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget, you can watch the Locked On Pelicans podcast on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network at 10:30 a.m. every single weekday, also at 5:30 p.m. every single weekday. And don't forget the Locked On Pelicans fan survey that we are running right now. We have hundreds of responses from y'all. They're all going to get read on the show. I'm not going to hide things. It's not, some of the questions are, people were very negative on. We're going to put it all out there, what you're feeling about that. Make your voice heard. It's going to influence a number of episodes with the show. This was a lot of fun to do. 25 questions will take you a few minutes. The link to that is in the description down below. So let's keep talking about the rotation and shooting and factoring in kind of those things of why I don't think you go for like a one-dimensional shooter just to say you added shooting when they're not going to play that many minutes with it all. You don't really need that, right? You need more shooting, though. Can you get it from the team? And here's the thing. When you look at Jordan Poole, and a lot of national media kind of question that trade, that transaction, and I get it. I get it from a contract situation of having an extra year on the player to figure out what you want to do here and what your direction is, and you weren't going to re-sign CJ, so you may as well get something for him, right? And I think Jordan Poole is a better player than CJ McCollum is. But one of the things I've been saying here is Jordan Poole needs to embrace more of like a supporting role. In Washington, he kind of started at times. He wasn't the most featured guy, but did it enough. Golden State, he was kind of running the show a little bit at times too. Here, he's going to be like your second or third option after Zion Williamson and potentially after Trey Murphy. By the way, the survey, y'all love Trey Murphy. I love Trey Murphy, but that is like loud and clear here. So, if he needs to embrace more of a support role, and we're saying we need more shooting, that probably means to a lot of people more catch and shoot threes, right? Take more catch and shoot opportunities, Jordan Poole. And while that would be a good thing to do, Jordan Poole brings a different dimension of shooting than anyone else has on this team. It's actually the reason why the Pelicans traded for CJ McCollum, truthfully, in the first place, but has kind of changed, I think, a little bit, from all of that as well. So I'm trying to pull up some tracking data here on Jordan Poole and get all of those. The computer just completely went away from me here, which was kind of weird. One of the reasons they traded for CJ McCollum is he was a very good three-point shooter on the bounce. They didn't really have anyone who could create their own three-point shot at the time. They needed that type of player. Jordan Poole is very much that kind of player the majority of the time. It's actually shocking how good he can be when it comes to those type of situations. He's a good catch and shoot guy too, at 36.6% catch and shoot 3-point situations last year. But you don't necessarily anyone could be a catch and shoot guy on this team. You could put anyone there and it would be fine, right? Jordan Poole last year, though, of 81 players, this comes from at HP Basketball in the article he wrote about the New Orleans Pelicans that I referenced the other day. 81 players took at least 200 jump shots off the dribble via synergy. So off the bounce, right? Creating your own offense kind of guy. Among those players, Poole was 5th in points per possession. 5th in points per possession when it came to just shooting threes off the dribble. So kind of in isolation among other things. He is just flat out incredible in that type of situation last year. You need that guy to do it. I think one of the concerns that people have about Jordan Poole was, will he accept another role, or is he going to just kind of be like heroic Jordan Poole? It's me. I'm going to go do my thing. He's got a little bit, whether fair or unfair, of that kind of reputation around him as a player. He's a little bit polarizing, a little bit, because of that type of stuff. But here's the thing. The Pelicans need him to do that. And it's going to frustrate you in the beginning when you first see it happening. They're going to need him to bring the ball up the court against a set defense. The defense might be sagging off of him, and just have him rip a three early on with like 18 seconds left in the shot clock. Take that just, 3-point shot from deep wherever, and just hopefully you make it. It's going to frustrate you. You're going to be like, he didn't pass the ball. He didn't try and drive. Literally no one else touched the ball. No one else was involved. Why are we encouraging Jordan Poole to do it? Well, we just went over the numbers there. He was just an absolute flamethrower from that spot on the court. You need that kind of guy in those type of situations. He was really, really good from above the break threes, just pulling up and shooting the ball. And in fact, his numbers of the percent of his field goals that were assisted last year was the lowest of his career. On all of his shots that he made, he was assisted on 57.4% of those. That means he's out there and he's basically just shooting the ball without anyone passing it to him. It's isolation, kind of create your own offense. That actually can be a very useful thing, and the Pelicans need more of that, in my opinion. So to see him doing this here, I kind of like, truthfully. He was really good when it came to those kind of shots last year. And if he can do more of that, that does end up spacing the court. So you're going to want him to take a lot of these type of just quick threes early on in the shot clock if he's given a little bit of space. If he's making them, that is going to make teams absolutely worried about him and forced to cover him. That then spaces the court for Zion Williamson. You need Poole to basically go like, I'm a hero. It's all Jordan Poole time, and do that. He took 9.1 3-point attempts per game last year. The Pelicans need him to take that same amount per game again this season. And if he can do it, well, just bringing the ball up, no one's defending me, I'm going to shoot. Teams will eventually start defending him. And that means that's one less guy, one fewer guy, I forget which, then they can commit to Zion Williamson. So the answer to the 3-point shooting problem for New Orleans is not necessarily trade for Buddy Hield, trade for Sam Hauser, or a one-dimensional 3-point specialist that's just not going to play significant minutes. It's have a guy that's going to play 33 plus minutes per game for you, take and make more threes. This doesn't just apply to Jordan Poole, because he's going to do that, right? This is going to be someone like Herb Jones needs to shoot more threes in this. Trey already does. Does Messi have range from three? Looking at those kind of guys to try and add to all of that. There's other concerns about Jordan Poole, which we don't need to go into right now, but this is one thing that when you see him doing this early offense threes, not getting anyone else involved, don't complain. This needs to happen for the team. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but this is something that's going to be massively important. And if he was straight up if he's a flamethrower again, like he was last year, that is going to lead to some really good things for the New Orleans Pelicans offense and make Zion Williamson's life easier. Poole has the potential to be a fantastic partner with Zion and combo with Zion alongside Trey Murphy as well when it comes to court spacing. If he's not making those threes, it's a slightly different story. But last year, dude was on fire from those type of situations. The team's definitely going to need all of that, I think. And then when you factor in that, Zion might miss time and Poole can kind of take over, all of that's going to be a very good thing here. But this is how you improve the 3-point shooting, what Jordan Poole can do. And probably one of the reasons the Pelicans did target him when it comes to this is they need a guy kind of like this. They didn't have a guy that was like this. Now they do. That Poole acquisition, people like really, national media really, it's just completely missing the point of it and just be like, it's head scratching. And then you look at certain things about it and it's not head scratching at all. It makes a ton of sense actually. And I very much like the move. So pool party time here in New Orleans. Do you want to see Jordan Poole taking those shots? Do you want to see something else? Let me know in the comments down below. So coming up next, we don't actually know what the Pelicans need just yet, and I'll explain. That's up next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join us on YouTube as well. Comment down below on YouTube as well. I see y'all out there. And of course, just follow along everywhere. Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, podcasts, YouTube. We're going to have a lot more content coming for you. We're not taking a single day off in the off season, which has been a lot of fun, kind of giving you the content, the coverage you are looking for here. I can't wait for the season to start, giving you the deep dives like this, that nugget about Jordan Poole and how important he is going to be to this team next year. And don't forget, take the fan survey. We have a couple hundred responses already. It's been really, really great to see. It's been fun. There's also options for you to kind of not just, pick a 1 through 10 question or a multiple choice question, but write what you feel. And that's an important thing. So the link is in the description down below. For your second listen, it's Locked On Saints. Ross Jackson, who I was texting with literally yesterday, who's going to be QB1 on opening day? It hasn't been decided just yet. Who's getting reps with the first team in practice? Ross is there, boots on the ground, covering everything black and gold. Make Locked On Saints your second listen today. So we've kind of gone over a sketched out rotation, Jordan Poole and his role for the team. But look, there's a lot we don't really know just yet. That's why I said we're sketching out a rotation. This is written in pencil. This is not written in ink. It's not etched in stone or anything like that. It's August. Training camp hasn't happened. Rookies haven't really gotten any significant minutes here. DeJounte Murray hasn't returned from injury yet, right? All of a sudden things are just still very fluid and wide open. Maybe in training camp, Jeremiah Fears massively impresses, and that kind of changes what the Pelicans maybe need to do during the season to try and improve the team. Maybe Misi, coming off of this run at AfroBasket, is going to look like a much improved player, and the Pelicans don't need to try and upgrade the center spot, right? Does Jeremiah Fears come in and nail threes? Does Derek Queen, when he's healthy, nail threes? All of a sudden, that really changes, the calculus of what this team needs to look to try and do. Maybe Hawkins really impresses. He's going to be healthy, hopefully no more back issues and things like that. And if he comes in, he can impress potentially too. Willie Green might come in with a different view of the offense. Maybe he and James Borrego have really worked on that over the past couple of years. And then maybe things dramatically change and Zion misses time. Maybe there's injuries and things take a turn for the worst. And this team needs to start becoming a seller at the trade deadline. There is so much uncertainty and unknown about this team. In that fan survey, one of the questions is like, what are you most excited for this year? And a number of people put like the uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. It makes it kind of exciting in a sense, which scary, but also, kind of exciting, right? The Pelicans probably shouldn't be making any sort of like decision just yet till you kind of know your team a little bit more, in my opinion. Now, look, if there's a big move that you're like, oh, we can get this player and that really is a paradigm shifter, game changer, do that. Don't get me wrong. Go and do that sort of thing. But like a kind of minor move around the edges that you've got to use a future draft asset for, I don't know if that's the type of thing that you really just need to do just yet, right? And maybe it turns out you do need more shooting. Since everything isn't set in stone, right now I look at this and I'm like, don't try and like use assets to go and upgrade a shooter or something like that. But by December, we could be talking about an entirely different thing here. We're going to need to see this team in action. And whereas most trades don't really get done until the trade deadline, New Orleans, depending on where they're at, and again, we've talked about this on the show. I think the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament, is really a good barometer of where this team is going to be and how they're going to kind of be like looked at and operating. That's going to give us a true test of what needs to happen. I just don't think we have enough to kind of make that decision just yet. A lot of people ask me this year. I ran into some, just people, listeners of the show, seeing me out over the weekend. Like, what do you think's going to go? I'm like, they could be good. They could also be very bad. Like there's the spectrum, the range for this team is pretty wide, truthfully. We don't know yet. Training camp's going to give us some ideas. Preseason's going to shed some clarity on this. The start of the regular season with a tough start to the season in terms of the schedule is going to be really important to see. It's not about what we think the team needs right now, but maybe what they're going to need in the future, and having that flexibility, not overreacting before you know what this version of the Pelicans already looks like, is going to be a pretty important thing, I think, for this team and how they operate this year. I think they're attempting a 2-timeline approach. I don't love that. I've said I think they need to kind of choose one of them, but we still don't know which one to choose just yet. And we're going to need some more clarity on that before it's let's start making moves, let's start doing this, and so on and so forth. And that kind of excites me. It's nice to know, go into the season with this degree of like, what could happen? Love all of that. So we're going to find out sooner rather than later when it comes to this Pelicans team, and hopefully it's going to be a good thing. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Some just insane stats for Jordan Poole last year. Really cool. We got more to come later on Locked On Pelicans this week. One more show for y'all. We're going to be covering it here on the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and I'll be back with y'all tomorrow.